Special guest in the studio today, guys, Dan from Heavy Duty Country. We got a good conversation coming your way. This is attorney Andy Marcantel and attorney Marc J. Victor. We're the partners of the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm here today with a very special guest in the studio, HDC. You know him as Heavy Duty Country. We know him as Dan, but you should all know him as a total badass and a good friend of our show. How you doing today, Marc?
Awesome, man. I've already had such a good time hanging out with Dan.
Dan got in yesterday, and Jonathan Harris, somebody who works in our AOR department, picked him up from the airport and carted him immediately to cigar night over at the cigar bar in downtown Chandler, of course, where we all had a great time. Yeah.
Ton of fun. Really cool spot down there.
Yeah, well, welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having me out.
It's great to have Dan here. I'm actually excited to talk not just Second Amendment stuff, but freedom stuff, to get some broader issues. And I'm actually going to corner Dan later tonight. He's having dinner at my house, and we're going to talk a whole bunch of freedom stuff and solve the world's problems.
Yes,
absolutely.
Dan's not here by coincidence. It's the 2A rally this weekend in Phoenix. You want to say anything about that, Marc? I think you're scheduled to talk.
Yeah, this is a really great rally. I mean, I think people know Arizona is definitely, if not the most pro-gun state. I know Texas makes an argument. They got some points out there. But, Arizona doesn't take a backseat to anyone. We got a lot of really hardcore pro-Second Amendment and pro-freedom people here. And this rally comes up every year. It's always a good time. You're going to see people walking around with all kinds of firearms very peacefully, very civilized. And the only thing I don't like about this one is I got 5 minutes. What am I going to say in 5 minutes?
You've never said anything in 5 minutes.
I can hardly get my name out in 5 minutes, man. But I'm going to try to take 5 minutes and talk about the kind of stuff I like to talk about. So I'll be speaking really fast.
What time are you speaking?
I think I'm on around 11 or 11:30. And we've got a table there, so I'm going to hang out. Dan's going to be hanging out at the table, and it's just going to be a fun event.
What are you looking forward to about the rally this weekend, my friend?
Honestly, just meeting a ton of people. I think it's going to be really cool to see Marc speak. I think Jared from Guns and Gadgets is going to be there. It's going to be really cool to see him.
Yeah, and we've got one of our paralegals who we've had on the show before, Lauren Liberty, is also going to be down there to speak. She has some personal experience speaking on big cases. She was down in front of the Capitol steps in Washington, D.C., talking about gun rights and the importance of firearms ownership for women. Yeah, really inspirational.
She's the bomb, and she's going to be kicking off a new show here. I think we can talk about it, called Armed and Fabulous with Lauren Liberty.
Who came up with that name?
She came up with the name.
It's really good.
Yeah, and her following dwarfs our following, by the way. I mean, she is really popular, and we need more women out there in the pro-Second Amendment world and in the pro-freedom world. Look, women are roughly 50% of the population, and we need more of them out there fighting because, look, you only get a free society if you're willing to fight for it, right? The second you're not willing to fight for it, you lose it because there are people who want to control other people, and those people generally gravitate towards power, and that's the way things go. So you got to always be vigilant, right? That's right. Back to the Founding Fathers. You always got to be vigilant. And was it Jefferson who said the tree of liberty must be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants? And he was talking about like every decade.
Right.
Yeah, these guys were pretty hardcore, which is why I love those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dan, why'd you start your channel?
So I actually started it just as kind of like a funny channel. I was like doing like funny truck videos and like stuff on the ranch. And randomly one day, it was like right before COVID, the whole situation with George Floyd happened. And my grandpa was a POW in World War II. He was in the Battle of Sunda Strait, and he was on the USS Houston, and just really pissed me off when they presented a flag to his family. And so did a video about that, went viral pretty much the same day, and then probably for the first 2 years, it was all just freedom stuff. It was all just straight, what's going wrong in America, and I really love the live and let live movement. I mean, it's so big for me just because that's kind of what I've talked about the whole time. It's I'm going to do me, you do you, and that's it. Because, people trying to think they can control other people. I mean, I'm fine with selling somebody on your ideas and trying to get them on board with what you're doing. But at the end of the day, if they tell you no, full stop, that's it.
Yeah.
It's done.
I've noticed that about your content. Like, you're very opinionated. And you disagree with a lot of stuff going on in the country for good reason.
Yep.
But it's always kind of couched in, and if these people want to do crazy shit like that, who am I to tell them any different? I disagree with it. I think it's stupid. I think it's wrong. Your problem is when they force their ideology on you, when they start coming for your firearms, when they start limiting your freedoms. And I've noticed you've always been really fair about that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people talking about like all the woke stuff going on in America. And to be honest with you, as long as you're not pushing it on me, my family, and, you know, eventually my kids, do what you want.
Yeah, I mean, if you're confused about your pronoun, you can't decide if you're male or female. You change your mind every day or whatever. Whatever I think about that, it ain't my business. That's on you. Like, I'm pretty sure about my pronoun and my sex, but if you're not, that's fine. You can run your, but you don't get to tell me anything about how I need to speak or how I need to act. You shouldn't get to tell me who I need to employ. You don't get to decide which bathroom you use.
Yeah.
For me, you know, if it's my bathroom, I decide who gets to use it and what the criteria is to use it. So you keep your opinions about the world and live however you. In fact, I'll defend your right to live that way. But don't force your stuff on me. What I'll give you back is I won't force my stuff on you. Can we just get there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is how they push it on kids at this point. It's like people who aren't necessarily to the point where they have enough intelligence to think for themselves. Adults most of the time can say, okay, you know, I'm not buying into this. But kids, I mean, sometimes they don't know better.
Yeah, this is a hard issue, I think, because, you know, on one hand, you want to take the position that, hey, parents should be as close as possible to kind of the absolute decision makers over what their kids are taught. On the other hand, man, some of the stuff, you got a parent who says, you know, little Johnny is 4 years old, and now he's decided he's a female. I want to get him a surgery to turn him into a girl. Little Johnny, do you want to be a girl tomorrow? Yeah, I want to be a girl tomorrow. Okay, you might pause.
They don't know.
Right. You might pause on that and say, okay, at some point we get to tell the parents, you know what, you're overstepping your job here as a parent. But where to draw that line can be a very hard question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm predicting that in the civil context, this is outside of our field of law, but based on what's going on right now with parental decisions regarding that type of issue, I'm envisioning a giant wave of civil suits from these kids when they turn 18, 19, 20, and there will be law firms that are going to have dedicated practices to bringing these suits against parents, right? But this is an interesting topic right now, particularly, especially in the wake of this case where the mom just got convicted for the conduct. Crumbley, for the school shooting committed by the 15-year-old child. Have you seen this?
I think I have, yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Basically, we have, I think, undisputably, a really, really bad mom and a really, really bad dad in terms of ignoring the fact that their child had clear evidence of mental illness, and he was 15, and they gave him despite knowing and having some warning signs that he was potentially violent. I mean, he was talking to them about seeing demons and talking to them about violent type things, and despite that knowledge, gave him a gun. You know, he's 15 years old. There's some evidence that they provided some sort of training, but there was enough red flags. And then he goes to school. He's called into the principal's office. They express concerns that he's looking up buying ammunition. At that point, the parents don't volunteer the information that, by the way, we gave him a gun. You might want to check his backpack, kind of a thing. And then, predictably, he goes and shoots up the school.
Yeah, they tried to get the parents to take the kid home that day and said, hey, look, you got to get him counseling. Will you take him home? And they were like, nah, you know, we got to go back to work. And I guess some evidence came out that the employers said, no, if she had told us, she could have taken the day off. But in any event, they didn't take the kid. They send the kid back to school. The kid goes into the bathroom and goes in and on a rampage, kills 4 students at the school and injures a bunch. And so, you know, the question now is, to what extent are the parents criminally responsible for what the kid did? And, you know, on one hand...
Glad you emphasized that term, because that kind of, to me, is the dividing point. Is this a civil responsibility or a criminal responsibility?
Yeah, I mean, and that's an important question, right? Because you can have civil liability without criminal liability. You got to be a little more careful when there's criminal responsibility. And, on one hand, you don't want to make the parents responsible for everything that the kid does, right? I mean, kids do all kinds of crazy things, and even the most responsible parents, being the most responsible parents, can't prevent stupid. We all did stupid things as kids, right?
Well, yeah,
I
hold
mean,
on. Just to hop in there. There is an age at which, though, we as a society say that the parent should literally be responsible for every single thing that the kid does, liability-wise,
Yes.
right? If you have a 3-year-old, while you're in Walmart and the 3-year-old pulls down a display and causes tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage, there's no argument in court at that point. We're all pretty much in agreement that the 3-year-old is not mentally competent enough to make a reasonable decision and that the liability falls on the parent. The question is, at what point in that, the teenage years, the formative years, everything like that, do the independent actions of the child, do we say, okay, no, we're past that time, this is clearly distinct from when the child was a 3-year-old? And that's what's kind of at the heart of this. But another thing that's at the heart of this is whether this should even be in the criminal context in the first place.
Yeah,
because
that's the controversy.
they charged mom under a gross negligence standard, whereas with something like manslaughter, we use a different standard. We use something called recklessness, which is a conscious disregard of a known risk. Negligence is different. Negligence is lower than that. It's like, oops, I messed up kind of a thing. And that's pretty much the legal standard. It's when, with a little investigation, you could have determined that this might have been a risk, and the risk that happened, the harm that happened was foreseeable, and all that seems pretty gray in this case to me.
Yeah, Mark and I were just talking about negligent discharges. And I know you talked about this the other day about if you should carry one in the chamber or not. And I'm a live and let live type of guy, so do what you want as long as you've trained and know the situation and whatever. But one question I asked Mark was the amount of calls that you get for a firearm-related incident. What's the percentage of a negligent discharge versus an actual, okay, I had to shoot a guy? Because my mind is probably a lot of them are negligent, like I was pulling it out when I was training, shot my foot, or whatever it is.
If you're if you're listening to this right now and your attitude is, I'm a responsible firearms owner. I got a gun. I'll use it if I have to. I'm not excited about using it. I get myself training, and I feel like I'm pretty responsible, and I carry because I want to be a responsibly armed American. If that's you, chances are you're going to need us more for an accidental discharge than you are going to need us because you were involved in a self-defense incident. And so because of that, I think you got to use your brain, right? I don't think there's one rule that applies for every circumstance. If you're in a situation, say you're a police officer and you're working in a tough neighborhood, you're going to need one in the chamber, right?
Yep.
Or maybe you're not a police officer, you're carrying because you walk through a tough neighborhood every day and the chances are higher you're going to have these kinds of problems. You better carry with one in the chamber. Make sure you got, good training. But if, on the other hand, you're a mom out in suburbia and there's not a lot of crime out there and you're carrying and you got a round in the chamber, you've increased your chances you're going to have an accidental discharge. Now, I get it. If you don't carry with one in the chamber, you may not have time to chamber around. So it's a decision you got to make. But I've represented many, many responsible firearms owners who thought they would never suffer an accidental discharge, and one thing led to another, and oops. And that accidental discharge, by the way, can easily turn into an ag assault or a death, a homicide if somebody gets hit from that round. So
we've had bullets go through walls in apartment complexes and go into through living rooms and by a child's crib and all kinds of other things like that. But let me try to give a general piece of advice here. I'm going to attempt it for our AOR clients who are listening about negligent discharge. If you suffer a negligent discharge and there's no human life in danger, err on the side of calling our law firm, call that emergency line, before you call the cops on yourself.
Yes.
Because I can't tell you dozens and dozens and dozens of cases we have had in this office where it's somebody cleaning a gun or the round in the chamber, it just goes off, and then they say, I'd better call the police first just to let them know what happened. It would have been a big giant nothing. The police show up and say, well, that's a crime. That's actually a felony in many jurisdictions. Turn around. I'm putting handcuffs on you and you're going to jail. Whereas we have had many success stories of people calling in and saying, what should I do? Should I call the cops? Well, we have some questions before we advise you on that. Was there anybody else around? Are you in an apartment complex? Were there any witnesses? Is there any possibility that the bullet went to someplace else where anybody could have seen it? And maybe after that line of questioning, as has often been the case, we say, you know what? Don't call the cops. Let's wait and see what happens. We don't have any reason to think that they're coming, so don't call the cops at this point. And a lot of those have turned into big nothings.
Yep.
Whereas they would have otherwise been felonies.
Boy, my brain is going through all of the various negligent discharge cases we've had over the years. There have been so many. It is clearly the number one crime we see with a firearm.
I just think this is so cool. I mean, you're explaining this right now, and I'm just thinking for $25 to $35 a month, where can you get on the phone and talk to a lawyer right away? And it's like, hey, like I screwed up, negligent discharge, what do I do? And you're on the phone with them.
Yeah,
that's the biggest selling point for a lot of people.
I mean, you go into a law firm, even a real low-level attorney, it's going to be, they're going to charge you a retainer or a flat fee or whatever just to probably talk to you about it.
First AOR call I ever got on the emergency line was a negligent discharge from another state. Did you call anybody? Who knows about this? It was one of those. No, I haven't yet. I said, okay, well, maybe you shouldn't. It never turned into a case, right? But I'm glad he was able to make that call and talk to me because the guy was thinking about, do I need to report this? Do I need to do something about this? I mean, the question of what to do about the hole in the wall is a more delicate question, right? Because now you got issues about whether you have evidence of a crime and what you can do about that. And I certainly can't give advice to tell people to tamper with evidence in a criminal or could be a criminal situation, so you got to deal with that one very carefully. But yeah, just like you're saying, the fact that guy made that call to me and we were able to talk, he was very, very thankful about that as well. And
I can say with confidence, just our being available and advising people in those emergency situations has kept numerous people from even being charged with a crime. What's that worth? I know. It's
pretty amazing.
Even if you could get one of these insurance-backed companies to cover your case, that involves you getting charged first. And as we tell clients all the time, if you're even charged with one of these types of crime, you've already lost, even if you're ultimately acquitted, because you got to spend a bunch of time. Probably the next year of your life's going to be in courtrooms with you stressing every day, am I going to prison? Am I going to be there for my family? It's the first thing you think about. When you're charged with a crime, it's the first thing you think about when you wake up in the morning and the last thing you think about before you go to bed at night. You've already lost, even if you're ultimately acquitted. So what's it worth to have an attorney there immediately who could potentially prevent you from going through that process in the first place?
Yeah.
People don't understand that moment when you go to trial, when the jury's filing in and they know they got a verdict and they say, the judge says, Mr. Foreperson, have you reached a verdict? Yes, we have, and they pass it up. It's so tense in the courtroom. Yeah. And even, I'm thinking of a client who I had on a case, and we were in that moment, and they came back, and it was a clean not guilty on everything, and how relieved she was. But just what she went through. In fact, I may have even written an article about that. It was like, I think I had 400 pounds of marijuana. I think you may have even been at that closing for me in the car, and I got her off of that. She won, but you don't really win, right? You won, but my God, you went through a year of your life that was miserable. And this is before AOR, so she paid a bunch of money for a lawyer that she didn't want to spend on a lawyer. And just the roller coaster every day after trial. Did we do good today? Was the trial good today? Did we win today? Did we lose today? After every witness even, how did that witness go? I mean, it's such a big thing. Like, you really want to avoid putting yourself in this situation. I mean, really the best lesson is to not be in this situation, right? Like, people call all the time and they want to talk about the castle doctrine and, do I have to retreat? I said, dude, if you can safely retreat, even if you're in a state like Arizona, like most states that don't require you to retreat, if you can safely retreat, you should. Avoid the situation. Sometimes you can't avoid the situation, right? If you're going to die or someone you love is going to die or be seriously injured, okay, you got to step up and do what needs to be done. But if you can avoid the situation by using verbal jujitsu and talk yourself out of that thing, the fact that you got a gun in your holster, don't get excited about using it because you're going to go through a huge investigation. You might be dealing with a prosecutor who just wants to put you through it. You're dealing with a mandatory minimum sentence, very likely. A lot of these prosecutors feel like they can extract a plea out of you because it's tough. I've had many people who I actually felt were really innocent but didn't want to take the chance of trial either. and want to come in and plead. The Supreme Court has actually recognized this in the Alford case. It's ALFORD v. I think it's North Carolina, where the Supreme Court said it's okay for somebody to come in and plead guilty to a criminal offense and still say, yeah, but I'm actually innocent, Judge. That's okay for the court to still take a guilty plea, so long as they say.
And a lot of people choose to do that.
Yeah, so long as they say, look, I recognize there's a risk I could get convicted at trial here, and there's benefits. And think about what we're saying here. You're actually innocent, and you're still taking a deal to plead guilty because you're worried about rolling the dice at trial.
Has to do with which jurisdiction you're in, too. You could have the analysis from your attorney is this is a really clean shoot, and it looks like good self-defense under the law. But because of the people who are going to be in that jury box, I'm advising you to take a plea, or there's a huge risk that even despite the fact that you have a great defense, you might get convicted and do the rest of your life in a cage. So innocent people get convicted all the time in the justice system. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of bad motives of people involved. There's good motives of people involved, too. But it's good to, back to what we were originally talking about, which is we can speak about this with authority because we're criminal defense attorneys. When you pull the trigger, even if it's a justified shooting, even if you're innocent, you should expect to go through that process we just talked about.
Your life's going to change.
Yeah,
your life's
even
change.
if you are totally in the right, I got Castle Doctrine on my side. I could retreat over there, but the law doesn't require me to. I'm blowing the guy away right now. Ultimately, it may be determined that your actions were completely justified. But as we always tell people, if what you are trying to prevent is not worse than what we just explained, then you shouldn't pull out your firearm. It has to be like, I'm pulling the trigger and I know that the next year of my life is going to be hell on earth. And so the question is, okay, what's going to happen if I don't pull the trigger right now? I'm going to die, I'm pulling the trigger. My family member's going to die, I'm pulling the trigger. Something like that. But if it's anything less than that, that's what we always tell people to consider.
Yeah, and to be fair, we had a couple of shootings in the last year that I think both of them resulted in a homicide, and there were no charges. So that doesn't mean you're always going to get charged.
That's right.
But, of course, these were both in Arizona, and it might have been different in New Jersey or New York.
Almost certainly. Speaking of some people's concerns, and I know that you recently did a video on it, I believe, the issue that happened after the Kansas City Chiefs celebration party where there was some discharge of a round. It sounds like one person was killed, maybe some people were injured.
Yep.
I thought you had a pretty interesting take on that, so I think that might be a good way to start the conversation. Tell us what your thoughts are on that whole incident that happened.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I noticed was it was a citizen who took the guy down and tackled him, and I think there was 800 cops there. And, of course, Kamala and Joe get on their grandstand after and say, well, we need an assault weapons ban. And I didn't see what kind of gun was used. People are telling me there may have been a rifle involved, may not have been, but my stance has always been, why not go or try the other route? Why not promote more people being armed, more people being, taking on responsibility to take someone out if they have to?
Wasn't there a place, I don't know if it was Texas, it might have been, and people will correct me in this video, there was a city or a town that once passed an ordinance that said everybody must be armed. Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah, no.
I don't remember that
Yes,
either.
there is a city out there, they may still have it on the books, everybody must be armed. Now, not everybody is, and I don't know if they enforce it, but think about what that says when you're thinking about where you want to go burglarize homes and stuff like that.
Not that city.
Probably not that place. The same would be true even for firearms on planes. I know, oh my God, Marc just came up with a crazy idea, but what if the market actually got to decide these things? And some airlines said, you know what, if you show a certain level of competence or training or whatever, and maybe they got other rules, I don't know, but you can take your firearm on this plane for this flight. Do you think that would be the first choice of the guys that like to try to crash planes into buildings? Do you think they'd be interested in going after that airline?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I just got back from a holiday in Switzerland, and which is obviously one of the most armed countries in the world, if not the most armed country in the world. Exceptionally safe there. Every place that I went, I felt exceptionally safe. And the crime rate is super low, and that if you try to screw around over there, it's not going to end well for you, very likely. So I think the same premise could apply. If we encouraged more people to be responsible, trained firearms owners, I think people would be dissuaded. from doing this kind of crap.
Yeah, I think the psychological aspect to it is pretty much all it is for me. It's, do people know that a lot of people are armed there?
Yeah, it makes a big difference. And what if we actually, instead of demonizing firearms, what if we started at whatever appropriate ages, started teaching youngsters, okay, look, this is a firearm. The way they do it in the Marine Corps, right, when they start breaking out what I now call the AR-15, but what I then call the M16A2 service rifle, you spend several days really just learning about safety, learning about how serious this thing is. Then you get to the range and you don't have live rounds and everybody's looking at you. It's very, very careful about not having a safety problem. And they're very proud of what the safety record is there. What if we started youngsters about, okay, here's what a firearm is. Here's how it works. Here's the principle. It's basically a fancy way to throw a rock, right? You're launching a projectile from an action of an explosive in a certain direction. And here's the rules that surround when you can use it and when you can't use it. And there were scenarios. And we started actually creating responsible firearms owners. The truth is, we'd all be safer.
That's right.
We'd all be safer. And also, imagine we got the government out of schools. I know I'm going on a tangent here. But imagine we got the government out of the school system, and schools were free to put whatever rules they thought were appropriate. And so parents who said, you know what, I don't want my kids as sitting ducks in a school where nobody's got a firearm. But instead, the teachers are armed and are motivated to be armed. They know how to use their firearms. They're locked in a gun safe that's very quickly accessible in a problem. That school probably isn't going to suffer a school shooting. I mean, there's no guarantee. But if somebody walks in there with a firearm, there are many people right there, right? Nothing against the police, but they can't be everywhere. And this is why, like Dan was saying, at the Kansas City Chiefs rally, it was a civilian that tackled this person because the police can't be everywhere. What if we had more responsible firearms owners, at schools and on airplanes and on places where people are actually vulnerable? And look, if you don't want to send your kid to a school, fine. Send your kid to a school that doesn't have a firearm where they say, you know what, our kids are sitting ducks here, and maybe they change their mind
I think the market would pretty quickly correct that.
Yes. The market, let the market, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe most parents want their kids in a school where the kids are sitting ducks. I'm guessing I'm right here that they don't want that, but maybe they do. So send your kid to that school. That's fine. That's what freedom is about. Why do we have to have a one-size-fits-all solution?
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, we love your videos so much because you always bring it big, man.
Big.
And,
Thank you.
Big,
we forged a friendship because we were kind of following your channel and everything, and we've been working with you since September, and I think it kind of came out of your disillusionment with all of these insurance-backed self-defense companies. What are your thoughts on that? What led you to kind of take interest in our program?
It's just hard to trust insurance nowadays. I've gone through a lot of it with health insurance, and that's just been through rodeoing, and actually just got out of the ER about 2 months ago, and they didn't want to cover part of it, even though it was all medically necessary. And I think that's the problem, is they're so detached from the process that sure, somebody might mean well or the company might mean well, but at the end of the day, you got a bean counter there that's saying, okay, well, we don't see it the way, the Second Amendment community sees it, or, someone just saying it's self-defense, so we're not going to cover it.
When you're working for an insurance company, you're trying to disclaim liability as much as you possibly can, basically. That's
absolutely.
how it remains profitable.
Especially when you see an exclusion that says criminal acts are excluded, right? I mean, people didn't read. I think what happened was people that weren't reading these contracts, right? They were just talking to someone on the phone, saying, oh, this sounds good. These guys must be great. I'll sign up. And then nobody read the contract. And it wasn't until the contract started getting out there. And like, what do you mean? Criminal acts are excluded? That's the whole reason I bought this thing. And, then you get into this discussion. Well, just because you're charged doesn't mean it's a criminal act. You're still presumed innocent. Okay, but who decides that? Someone at some insurance company is going to make a decision that's going to pretty much be final on that case. And so, I think it's good that information has gotten out to the market about different products. And, as we say, Andy, we released a video just recently critiquing AOR. There are some things that these insurance companies offer that we don't. And that's
right.
Fine. If you want to sign up for that, sign up for that. There's other aspects of these other programs.
We're going to get the comment again, the tote bag. We don't offer the tote bag. USCCA has that damn tote bag. Why can't
the tote bag
our
or
marketing
the
people are in
kit.
the room? Marketing people, can we make a tote bag? That's a low transaction cost, right?
Well, at least we got shirts now. I see
right.
Dan sporting a shirt. And
Yep.
The shirts are surprisingly comfortable. Actually.
They really are.
I know.
Yeah.
They're great shirts. I love them. I love the one about don't be in doubt when you pull it out. I think
Can't be.
That's probably my favorite, right? There's several ways to look at that. But why be in doubt? At least you know you got a team of lawyers who are actually excited about representing people standing behind you. So anyways, it's been just a joy having you on. I love your videos. They come out. I always feel so fired up after I'm done watching one of Dan's videos.
Yeah.
So we asked you guys what you wanted us to talk about during this, and we took a few questions that were posted on the AOR YouTube in the comments of HDC's video previews and everything like that. So we can go through a few of them. But let's get this one out of the way right up front because a lot of you asked us to talk about. Dan, you completely and totally buy the narrative of Alan Colie's USCCA incident, right?
100%.
Yeah, it's 100% true.
I mean, it all cleared it up for me.
I also heard that
email.
I heard you're an AOR client in good standing.
Yes, I sent an email this morning to Marc and just told him that I'm in good standing because I
It's nice
felt
to
like
know that, yeah.
I felt like I needed to let him know just
good
in
to
case
see.
he forgot or didn't.
Sign Dan, an AOR member.
Yeah,
Well,
the
our
email
client.
signature.
Why is the 2A community too smart for this? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there was an attempt here to create a narrative, and I feel like the 2A community is industrious. I've found that a lot, is that they will research to the bone. They will go and they will look at every source.
Yeah.
And that's all really what we're trying to encourage people to do when it comes to our programs. Like, just we constantly say, read the damn contract.
Right.
But have you found, like, I've seen at the same time on other channels, I've seen people buying the narrative. I mean, what's your experience with this? Are people buying this crap?
No one is buying it. I said it in my video when I talked about it. You pretty much have to be as dumb as a doorknob to believe it. Just the way it's written. Clearly, Alan did not write that. I mean, just the way it's formatted and then signing USCCA member at the bottom. It's just kind of goofy to me. Also, what causes a person to want to do that? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. But
well, you know, it's an evolving story, right? I mean, just so happened the court file showed up in my office the other day, and I got to thumbing through.
Oh, you're going to tease this right now.
Yeah, I got to thumbing through the file, and there were some interesting documents in there. But, you know, to be fair, as we said we would, we wrote a letter to Tim Schmidt asking him to get to the bottom, to essentially saying, look, there's confusion about what happened on this case. There's confusion about things in the contract. What do you do when you're confused? You ask questions. So I wrote what I think is a very fair, reasonable, not packed with, you know, gotcha questions or things like that. Just packed with, here's the stuff that I think we want to know, that I think people want to know.
It's the stuff everybody wants to know.
It's the stuff people want to know. What happened in this case? And we sent it over there. I didn't want to, you know, be a jerk and rush them, so we gave them a couple of months really to respond to the thing. And said if you even want more time. I mean, most of these questions are yes, no type questions, but if you want more time, let us know, and then we'll see. We gave them until, I think it was April 15, tax day, to respond to some questions. We'll see what we get for answers. I don't know. Maybe we'll get some good answers. Maybe we'll get no answers. Maybe we'll get partial answers. You know, we'll talk about some things we've discovered in the court file.
Yeah, there are definitely some interesting things that are in the court file. But like you're saying, in the spirit of fairness, I want to give them a chance to respond to our letter. They might address some of our concerns that have arisen from looking through the
court file. At the end of the day, I'd like to have a cordial working relationship with all our competitors, right? And just say, look, here's what these guys offer, here's what we offer. And some people, in fact, I think there's a lot of people that sign up in our program and other programs because they want different aspects of training or liability coverage or the red flag stuff, which we don't cover right now. Maybe we'll add at some point. That's fine. We don't have to get everybody. I mean, look, there's, 300 million gun owners in this country. I would venture to say probably the vast majority of them have never even heard of a product like we're offering or like some of our competitors are offering. There's a huge market out there, and it's fine. You know, we're happy to keep doing what we're doing. We're not going to change what we're doing. We're not going to change how we're doing it or the way we practice law. That's been the same way we've practiced law, that I practiced law for 30 years. We have certain values at our firm, and that's how we operate. That's how we're always going to operate. If one of our AOR clients calls us, they check the 3 boxes in terms of what makes them eligible. it's funny because we get some comments like people think we're looking to weasel out of representing people on these cases. I mean, 2 points here. Point number one, could you imagine if we got a story like the Alan Colie case or the Kayla Giles case out of AOR? I was an AOR client. I did this and that, and it was something remotely close to self-defense, and AOR didn't cover. Like, that would be the end. Like, we're not confused about that at all. But the second point, come here and meet our lawyers. Come and sit in our criminal law meetings. I mean, I wish I could do that, but you can't. But we got a group of lawyers here who are excited about representing people. That's what we do. I don't have to write a big check out of my pocket to hire some lawyer. I got a whole team of them here ready to go. The biggest fights you're going to see here are who gets to do the case, right? I mean, that's the kind of team we have. So I encourage people to stop by the firm. We've had people stop by the firm and get to know what we're about or check out our firm. I think it's great, and I think it's led us to meeting people like Dan. I've really enjoyed that. I love his videos. He's got a certain style that makes it super fun, and it's great to have him here in the studio.
What's it going to take to convince the people who buy the USCCA narrative? What's it going to take to convince them that this is not what happened? I mean, like, I feel like the people who drank the Kool-Aid just seem so far gone to me. Like, what type of evidence would be required, do you think? What needs to come to light?
I think at this point, the people who still are buying the story, even if you have Alan Colie come on the show and say, hey, they didn't cover me, they only covered the appeal, they still wouldn't buy it.
Yeah.
Because they're so set on, okay, this is what happened, that's it. I mean, I can't tell you how many people emailed me Alan Colie's email and was like, so you're wrong, you need to apologize. And it's like, okay, believe what you want.
That's
There's
pretty
nothing.
Discouraging.
Yeah, it's a bummer, but people pick sides nowadays and refuse to look at logic.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it is what it is. Like Marc just said, we can't get through to everybody, but we're hoping that from my experience, just looking at comments and interactions and what's being shared by the 2A community, it seems like the vast majority of people, if they don't completely reject the USCCA's narrative on the Alan Colie story, in the very least, their questions weren't sufficiently answered by the email that was released. So that seems to be the overwhelming.
Yeah, we can only spend so much time on the Colie thing. I really hate talking about this. I'd much rather talk about stuff that we like to do. We're going to take care of our group. We got a group of clients who are in AOR. We treat them like they're our family. If the government's coming after them and they have any kind of an argument that they acted in self-defense, we're going to jump all over that. We're going to go overboard. And I tell people this. I say, look, if I'm charged with a crime, I have a certain idea of what kind of representation I want for me. That's exactly the kind of representation that we're going to offer for our clients, period. Doesn't mean we can win every case. Doesn't mean we're going to win every trial. Doesn't mean you might even like the advice we're giving you. The facts are different in every case. We're going to do good lawyering, which means we are going to get to the bottom of what the facts are. We're going to try to give good advice to people about what their case looks like if they decide to take it to trial. Here's the strong points. Here's the weak points. Here's what the law is. If you lose, here's what you're looking at. And then do our best to get the best plea offer on the table and say, here's what the plea offer is. They got to have confidence that we've fought as hard as we can possibly fight to say, look, this is the best we're ever going to get on the case. I expect they're going to say, how do you know that? Well, okay, because we did this and that with the prosecutor. We talked to the prosecutor supervisor, the boss's boss. We went up the chain. Here's what happened. Okay, this is the best deal you're ever going to get. And then you decide. Some of them are close calls, right? Some of them are just a function of what is your risk tolerance. But lots of times it's a pretty easy choice. Either go to trial or take a deal. But that's up to the client. We're going to do our lawyering that we've always done.
Well, on the subject of people getting disclaimed by these insurance companies, Marc and I had a pretty harebrained scheme here, and it may be a little bit premature, but I think we should at least tease this crazy idea. I already told Dan about it over cigars last night.
Brilliant.
I think he loved it.
Yep.
But it's basically a pro bono committee that our law firm wants to start for people who have been rejected or disclaimed by these other insurance-backed companies.
Yeah, I mean, we've done pro bono stuff before, right? We've taken cases for free during COVID, right? When we took and we fought some cases that we thought were outrageous, government overreach, and take your pick. There were so many of them during the whole COVID experience.
Several of those were high profile, and people can look online to see.
Yeah, and so, look, there's people out there very likely who have made bad decisions and have joined one of these other programs and probably got screwed. by one of these other maybe it was self-defense, but they got stung by one of these countless exclusions, right? And there's so many of them, right? Happened in a sensitive area. There was a problem with the firearm. You were drinking. It was domestic violence. It could be any number of things. And now they're left all by themselves. And we love doing these cases. And so we thought, why not take some of these? We're not going to guarantee people we're taking their case. We got to like the case. It's got to be of a interest to the Second Amendment community. Maybe a case we could advocate, push a little further, some issue on. We're not afraid to argue for a change in the law. We can do that as lawyers. But if somebody is with one of these other programs, they're a member in good standing, they got involved in an incident, they felt like, you know what, I tried to act in self-defense, and then the company said, sorry, we're not going to cover you. We're going to have some mechanism where people can apply to our firm and say, hey, will you guys help me?
Yeah, we're kind of envisioning, tell us your story. Write which program you were in, when did the incident occur, were you a member of good standing, and tell us about the incident. You got a police report, attach a police report. You got any evidence, attach that. If not, no problem, we can find it. But why were you disclaimed? Did they even explain to you why you were disclaimed? Did they leave it mysterious? And we imagine people maybe filling this on an online portal or sending it to us or calling our firm with it. And then the committee, the working title of which is the Second Shot Committee. I coined that one myself. Yep. I was pretty good about it.
Good name.
So this committee will then assess each application that comes in. And obviously our primary resources are going to be to our active AOR clients. They get we take those cases first. But if we have the resources, because we don't want to take so many cases that we're not doing a great job on our AOR clients' cases, if we have the expendable resources to do some pro bono work and maybe even be activist and promote a good case in the Second Amendment community, we reserve the right to do that.
Yeah, we got to like the client too.
Yeah,
right? I got to like the client. If a client comes in and we feel bad for the person and we say, hey, this is somebody we like, we want to help. If we got the ability to do it, let's do it. Let's go in and kick ass. Someone comes in and, they're a jerk or something like that, or someone, we don't have to help this person. We don't have to do it for free. It's a pro bono thing, and so we'll decide what cases to take. But I think it'll be fun, and we love doing this stuff. I mean, that's why I got people here at the firm. It's not like it's a chore for us. It's what we do.
So stay tuned for that. That's in the works right now. Let's keep going through these questions that we received. So this one says, Mark, in our experience, do gun modifications make the case more problematic in court? So in other words, the type of thing that prosecutors will bring up and make matters worse for our client in a given case.
I can't think of a case where this has been an issue. And
Me neither. Yeah, we were just talking about this.
I guess I should say that there was one case I did where there was an inscription on the firearm. And you remember that one?
I do.
Yeah, there was one that I did. There was an inscription, which I think is a little different because now you've got sort of a statement by the party opponent, which is normally admissible. And my recollection is that statement actually was kept out of evidence.
That's right.
Yeah.
But the prosecutors certainly tried to get it in.
Yeah.
Didn't the church shooter in, I don't know where it was, I think it was Lakewood, she had something about Palestine when she shot up that church on her gun? Or maybe it was a bumper sticker. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think statements are a little different, right?
Okay.
I think this question here, and the statement may not come in still, right? Because there can always be questions about who made the statement. Maybe just because it's on your firearm, it may not be a statement you actually adopt or something. So in terms of modifications, I'm thinking of, a lighter trigger or something like that. I can't think of a case where a prosecutor has tried to make an issue in some way about something.
Well, let me qualify that, because I've definitely had cases where while obviously your modifications are irrelevant to the question of whether you exercise valid self-defense, I've had prosecutors yap about that kind of thing at sentencing ultimately, right? If we're standing in front of the judge is allowed to consider anything.
At sentencing.
When you get to sentencing, when you're past those rules of evidence where we're keeping things out, the judge can talk or can listen to whatever evidence that they want, and the prosecutors sometimes will yap about things like dangerous modifications and things like that to ask the judge to give an aggravated sentence. But as far as legal relevance, not really any whatsoever.
I can't think of it. And people ask about hollow tips and stuff like that. I've never had it come up.
What about a Glock switch? Somebody asked about that. Have you guys ever dealt with a case on something like that?
I haven't.
No,
I haven't dealt with such a case either. But the point is that even if illegal, like, right? Even if flat illegal, any modification whatsoever has no bearing whatsoever on the question of self-defense and has no bearing whatsoever on the question of whether we would cover that if they were an AOR client. We don't care about that.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Next up, do we cover armed security guards? This is an easy one. Well, there's a little bit of a qualification to it.
I mean, the short answer is yes, we do. But on these situations where people are on duty, usually there's some mechanism where they've got coverage. It could be FOP, Fraternal Order of Police, or something like. We've represented many police officers over the years as well. And so we generally say we'll be second chair on a case like that. But I got to say, I've never been a good second chair. It's just not really. It's for some reason we're always wind up kind of leading the pack when there's a group of lawyers on a case. But I don't want to step on anybody's toes, right? If the client said, "Hey, I really like you guys to take the lead," okay, no problem. So it really doesn't make that much difference at the end of the day.
Next question: do you announce if you're armed if somebody's trying to get into your house? So I guess through the front door or something.
To me, this is more of a tactical question, right? Because there's legal questions, and then there's a whole world of tactical questions out there, right? Because you announce you're giving some tactical advantage away, and some people might have some things to say about that. On the other hand, you might be able to announce that, hey, I'm home and I got a gun, and get someone to run away just based on that. So I don't feel like I'm competent to answer a tactical question. That's not my area.
Is there any legal help in terms of self-defense though? If they say I'm armed,
yes,
you better get out type of thing.
It's a great point. Yeah, it's a great point. We always like to get an escalation of force, right? Because in the statutes, generally speaking, you either get to threaten or use deadly force or not, right? But I think that's too black and white, because if you pull out a firearm and say, hey, I got a gun, you generally are in the same category as you get to use it and shoot somebody. But we as lawyers like it much better. We like to stand in front of the jury and say, look, my client could have shot him at that point, but he didn't want to shoot him at that point. So he pulled out first he said, hey, I got a gun, leave me alone. Then he pulled out the gun and said, here it is, while he was pointing it up or down or as he's backing up, leave me alone. Then he pointed it and said, hey, leave me alone. And then still the guy's approaching. Then he finally fired.
Or maybe even discharged around not at that person. Like a good example is I recently did a homicide case, and there were 2 rounds that were fired, and somebody died. And so my client was claiming to act in self-defense. And so the witness, he just fired 2 shots at him and killed the victim. Well, it turns out when we got an investigator on the case, they found what looked like a bullet hole in the ceiling. So now the analysis has changed, right? Now it's first, leave me alone, fires one into the ceiling. And now, when the person still was advanced, so it totally changed.
Yeah, I remember that case. That was a huge point.
Yeah,
it was a great point.
Yeah, great question, guys. Would you still cover me if I have a domestic violence on my record from 8 to 12 years ago? We don't care if it was 8 to 12 minutes ago. We will not disclaim you for DV offenses, along with a laundry list of other things that these other companies will.
Yeah, and our contract's out there for people to read. We still get questions. Why can't I read the contract? Okay, go to the website. Go to attorneysonretainer.us. Go to the top right where it says FAQ. Scroll down. There's a question about halfway down. It says, how can I see our fee agreements? Read it. It's all right there. And when you do sign up, you get an excruciatingly long hour, it's more than an hour actual video from me, reading every single word of the contract and explaining it all in non-legalese to make sure that you understand. And then you got to check a box after that says either, yes, I understand everything, I got no questions, or no, I still got questions. I think that's the way the yes and the no's work. I could be wrong.
Yeah, that's right. And then they can request, I believe, to speak to an attorney.
Yeah, and maybe, do you have questions? Check yes.
I do follow-up calls with people all the time when they're signing up.
And then you'll get a call from me or Andy or one of our lawyers to make sure that you understand the whole full fee agreement.
Yeah, back to the question, though. DV is a pain in the ass. So we help people get their rights restored on all kinds of different things. And domestic violence, the issue with that is once you get an offense, a domestic violence offense, even if it's a misdemeanor, usually, you're only losing your rights if you're a convicted felon, but even if it's a domestic violence misdemeanor, the problem is the feds got involved in this issue. And your conviction goes to a federal database, so it's not just contained within the state anymore. Now the feds have you on their prohibited persons list. And I actually, when I'm restoring rights for people for domestic violence offenses, oftentimes they're shocked to find out that it's actually easier in Arizona and many other states to get your gun rights restored stored if you were convicted of a felony than it is if you were convicted of a domestic violence misdemeanor, because the feds have this policy in place.
Yeah, that was the Clinton administration, the Lautenberg Amendment. I remember when that came in. There were a lot of police officers who had problems because 20 years ago they had some domestic violence and this thing was retroactive. But the reason I brought up the contract is in our contract, we put a laundry list of stuff we do not exclude. So all you got to do is look at the contract and you'll see we don't exclude criminal acts, we don't exclude domestic violence, alcohol or drugs, illegal weapons, prohibited possessor.
This was a fun section of our contract to write.
Stuff we don't exclude.
Because all the insurance-backed companies have like an exclusion section, and so we proudly kind of put in there stuff we don't exclude for. So yeah, it's a point of pride for us.
Check out the contract. It couldn't be more clear.
Last one I got here is, the second to last one. What led us to take the law firm approach to this program instead of an insurance model like all the other competitors? This one's easy.
I don't know. Well, you answer it then.
Because we can represent you even if you're guilty of the crime, even if it's a bad shoot. We don't care. We're not looking to disclaim liability. We don't have a laundry list of exclusions. And to be fair, the reason why insurance-backed companies are required to have a laundry list of exclusions is because there's a public policy in the United States that you can't insure an illegal act. Period.
Right. So what got me thinking about it, though, was years ago I was approached by one of these companies that said, hey, Mark, will you be a provider for us? And I said, okay, what do I have to do? And they said, well, you got to give a 20% discount off of your fee. I said, yeah, but my fees are different on every case. So how do I figure out what's the appropriate thing? I said, we don't care as long as set your fee wherever you want. As long as you show our client that you're giving a 20% discount, we're happy. And I thought, oh, I get it. This is BS. And then I thought, you know what? We could do this on our own. Why don't we, we could give people real discounts or do real things. And that's kind of what got us thinking about it or at least got me thinking about it years ago, that I could use this law firm I've built to do something for people. And so that's kind of what morphed into the Attorneys on Retainer program.
All right, last one. Not so much a question, but more a complaint, which I think is a valid one. Make an app.
Yeah, this is a good one. It's not the first time the app issue has come up, and there are definitely people here at the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm who think we should have an app. I'm one of them. I'd love to have an app, so it's something we're looking into.
We're currently working on making an app.
Would that be for like the emergency number, just easier
everything.
Okay.
Yes, I think the way the app should work, you should have it there on your phone. You have a problem, you click on the app, boom. There's what we recommend, if anything you're going to say to the cops. There's the emergency number right there, everything you need to know. So yeah, that'd be fantastic. By the way, while we're on this point.
Well, hold up real quick. You just brought up, I think, a really good point, which is like what's going to be on this app. And like every other aspect of our program, we've been able to make it good because we turned to the 2A community and said, what do you guys want in the program?
Right.
So I think it might be helpful to just put a post or something like that. If you guys could make your ideal app for this type of a program, what would be in it?
One of the things I was going to say while we're on this point about emergency phone calls, this is another thing that distinguishes us from the insurance companies. Like, we actually know what's going to happen in court. That first hearing, I've probably done 1,000 release hearings in my 30 years. Like, we're really familiar with it. And so that's why we have this sort of emergency contact form, because we want to have the information. We're a law firm, right? We want to know the information we need for that first hearing. So we've sent out these emergency forms that have all kinds of questions. I think some people are like, man, this is a little intrusive. It's asking tons of questions. Look, if you don't want to fill it out, don't fill it out. But you should fill it out because, first off, everything you say is covered by attorney-client privilege and it's confidential, which means, we can't use it for anything, not marketing. We don't share it. We can't sell it. It's information you are providing.
And like all of our clients' files, it's on a very secured, high-security server.
Yes, it's encrypted. So we've had some calls already from AOR clients, emergency calls, and we get the call and we're on the phone and, get this guy's emergency contact form and, he didn't fill it out.
It's way better for the client if they filled it out. Now we have the emergency contact who we can call on their behalf if they're arrested. If they have a preference for a local counsel, we have that. We have an idea even of things like their assets for posting collateral. We have their residence so we can make an argument and how long they've lived there so we can make an argument to the judge that they're not a flight risk.
We know what the judge wants to know. The judge wants to know, is this guy a flight risk? Is this guy a danger to the community? And we may not be able to do an interview, right? You might call on the emergency contact line and say, hey, Mark, I'm an AOR member. Then I may hear some police officer in the background say, put your hands behind your back. That's the end of our call right there. They get to make that arrest right there. We may not get a chance to talk to you. Wouldn't it be great if we could have already done an interview and have all the information we need so we're ready to rock and roll at that very first hearing? So, look, you don't have to fill the thing out, but there's a reason you signed up in AOR. You want lawyers, not bean counters, to know what they're doing and are ready to go. That's the information we need for that first hearing.
Thanks for those questions, guys.
I wanted to comment one thing about what you were saying on the emergency call. So I know you guys talked about it before, but when you call AOR, you have attorney-client privilege.
That's right.
When you call one of these insurance companies, you may not be talking to a lawyer first, so they can subpoena that if you go to court and you're
You
screwed on
almost
whatever.
certainly won't be talking to a lawyer when you
Right.
call one of these companies.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
it's all
think,
discoverable. You can get on that first call and say, I screwed up. I made a mistake. I got in a shooting. I feel bad, blah, blah, blah. I need help. That call right there, if that's recorded, even if it's not recorded, that person is subject to a deposition. If that prosecutor finds out, they could drag that person into court, put him on the stand at your trial and say, you spoke with the defendant on his very first call. What did he say? Tell the jury what he said. He said he made a big mistake and he got involved in a shooting. There goes your case. If you say the exact same thing to me or a member of my law firm or the answering service for our law firm, it's all covered by the attorney-client privilege and the duty of confidentiality, which is broader. That's an ethical responsibility. So, if somebody calls our firm and says, I just want to know if Dan from Heavy Duty Country signed up as an AOR member, we're going to say, sorry, we can't confirm or deny anything. There's no attorney-client privilege statement there, but we are mandated by the ethics rules to not release any information, not even that we represent a person. We got several high-profile cases at this office right now, and some of them you'll see on the press here soon that are coming up. We can't talk about them because we don't have a signed media release from the client.
yeah, I actually just did a video the other day. There was a guy stealing a bunch of stuff from Lowe's, and this guy pulled his gun out and was like using it as a hammer to hit this guy. And in the video, I was like, use it or don't. Like, if you're not going to use it, put it away. It's not a hammer. Like, you're just creating more problems for yourself. But yeah, that was a pretty interesting one for sure. Because I feel like a lot of people can do that, or probably have in the past, where they pull it out to be intimidating. But if somebody calls your bluff,
I know.
you're in a tough spot.
I had a guy one time pulled out his firearm. I said, why'd you pull it out? He said, because she disrespected me. And really? That's why you pulled it out? Because you were disrespected? I mean, there are a lot of idiots with guns.
Yeah.
And they're not helping the cause.
There's a lot of idiots, period, out there.
That's true.
There's no doubt about that.
That's for sure.
But we need to get to a live and let live mentality in the law when it comes to this kind of stuff, because we're never going to be able to prevent the fact that there are idiots in the world. And the best we can do, given the fact that there are lots of idiots in the world who can't be dissuaded from their idiotic positions, the best we can do is enact a system that basically says, we'll leave you guys alone. You leave us alone. You live your life the way that you want. We'll live our lives the way that we want. We may have some opinions about the way that you live your life, but we will defend your right legally to live your life like that. That's the only...
I love it.
That's the only way forward.
Yeah, that's the only way the world's going to kind of come to a peaceful place.
If we're going to fix it, it's this path. And I write in my book, it's not like this is one way to get to peace and freedom. This is the only way.
It's just less stressful, too, having that mindset.
Yes.
It's like, why are people so worried about changing everyone else? It's like, just do your thing.
Do your thing.
Do your thing. Leave everyone else alone. Like, it's all good.
You think about how things would change, right? Imagine just where we started with the school thing. Imagine schools are totally free, right? And some parents can send their kids to schools that teach them what I call old school values, right? They learn entrepreneurship as well. They learn about being the opposite of sort of the snowflake woke mentality. They're back to sticks and stones don't break my bones. Names, those kinds of things. You can say whatever you want. I don't need a timeout to, a safe space room or something like that. And then let's see if the other parents who send their kids to what I'll call the woke school, and they learn about all this crazy stuff, what do you think happens in a generation? Do you think in a generation the parents now, having seen which kids are going to do better. And I'm pretty well sure I know which kids are going to do better in their lives, which ones are going to be happy and self-reliant and have the right values, and which kids are going to have a permanent victim mentality.
Yep.
What might the next group of parents do? Say, I'm going to send my kid to the school that teaches them a bunch of BS, or I'm going to send my kids to the school that teaches them how to be resilient and how to live a happy life and how to treat people and build high-trust relationships. I think this stuff, if given an opportunity, will self-correct.
The market sorts out bad ideas. The market sorts out bad ideas.
But you got to have a market. You can't have a monopoly government-run school system where everybody's arguing about what should get taught in the school, so everything gets watered down and now nothing important, nothing controversial.
Even that issue you brought up earlier with bathrooms is only complicated because some of the bathrooms aren't privately owned. They're government-owned. If it's private property, it's an easy resolution.
Easy fix.
Which is the property owner gets to choose who uses the bathroom.
Right. You could really extend this out even to like the sports teams. Should the men who are now dressing as women who want to play on the sports team for the women, should that be allowed? Well, who owns the league? Doesn't that solve the problem? I mean, you might start a league and say, I'm going to let guys dressing as girls play on the female team in my league. And if you want to send your daughter to play on that sports team, that's on you.
Right.
I'm not sending my daughter to play in the sports league where a bunch of guys dressed as women are on the team. And so let's see what the market chooses. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe a lot of dads will send their daughters to play on these kinds of sports teams so they can get their faces broken in by much stronger guys dressing
The
like
only
women
reason why anybody would oppose this is because they don't believe that the market will choose their path. That's
right.
the only reason anybody wouldn't agree with this
clear.
obvious thing. It's like people should be able to choose what they do.
I support
No, I don't want that. I want people to be forced the way that I believe.
I support the right of the person who wants to start the league to say anybody transgender, whatever sex you identify as, that's the team that you get to play on. That's their right. And if those parents want to send their kids there, that's welcome to America. You get to choose how to live here. That's what made us great, folks. It was the fact that we better preserved liberty and freedom and free markets relative to other countries. If you want to show me a country that has a high level of freedom, and I'll show you a place that's got a high level of prosperity where people live great, that has the strongest military, that's where people are going to be trying to break through the border to come in and live. There's a reason why they're trying to come here, right? Show me a country where there's a low level of freedom and the market's restricted and there's barriers to entry. That's a place where people are trying to break out from.
It's a really good point.
When the Soviet Union fell, and I'm old, you guys are probably too young to remember this, I thought this was the end of the argument. There you had it. You had capitalism versus socialism, and the Soviet Union fell, as did all these other crappy countries, and still sees them today. We have Venezuela. Why did you think Venezuela just happened?
North Korea and South Korea.
Right. It's very easy to figure. You had a great experiment in Germany with East Germany and West Germany. Here you had the same people, same environment, same everything. Seal them off. Give one of them more freedom, one of them less freedom. One of them makes Porsches and Mercedes and Audis, and the other one makes garbage. Why are we still fighting about this fight?
Yeah.
People don't know history. And you know what? If you want to be a socialist, have fun. Put your money together with all your pals, pay common bills, but you don't get to force other people into your economic plan. That's just freedom.
So we're running out of time, gentlemen, but I wanted to end with Dan here. Dan, any big plans for your channel in 2024? You're going to keep cranking out great content?
Oh, man. Just continuing to promote AOR as long as I remain in good standing with you guys.
Well, dude, we're so honored to have you. We love every time you drop a video, I love watching it. They always get me fired up. They have such great attitude. I always say, this guy says what he thinks. And again, there's a certain type of authenticness that I think people really like about what you're doing. I think about what we're doing too, because I read the comments.
I think that's the biggest thing that attracted me to AOR is you guys are just straight up. And that's what the industry is missing right now, especially with all the controversy with the insurance-backed stuff. Is it just seems like so many people it's just smoke and mirrors. And with you guys, it's straight up. I mean, who reviewed their own contract before you guys? No one. And that's why I think a lot of this has happened, because they've just kind of been skating it by.
Yeah,
and as soon as somebody brought it out into the open, now it's causing all this stuff.
I'd rather make less money and
Yeah.
be proud of what we're doing than make more money and try to cut corners and not really walk the walk. I mean, you walk through our firm. There's a lot of stuff out there that is very high sound. We got quotes out there from Marcus Aurelius and Seneca and Epictetus. There's some big time quotes out there. We're definitely talking the talk at our firm.
Yeah.
If we don't walk the walk, then I feel we're a fraud.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be a fraud.
Yep.
You might not like what we're doing. That's fine. But this is what we're doing. If you like it, welcome to the team. Welcome, be a member of our family. We'll fight for you. You don't like it? Go somewhere else.
Yep.
And it seems with our second shot, maybe if you get screwed over there, you can still appeal and come and say, you know what, sorry, Mark and Andy, I should have signed up for AOR, but instead I went with the insurance company. Now I'm screwed. Will you guys help me? Maybe we will. And maybe we won't.
Dude, I'm so excited.
I love that.
We'll see where this
That's
goes.
cool.
This is just, it's simultaneously like an awesome pro bono service that we can do to the self-defense community, but also it's just kind of trolling these other companies. So it's a nice combination of those two things, which I think is super.
We'll see where it goes. I don't know. We'll see.
Absolutely.
All right, stay tuned for that. We want to thank our guest, Dan from Heavy Duty Country. Go check out his channel. You don't need us promoting him. You're here because you know his channel. So go and learn more about our program at attorneysonretainer.us. You can also go to attorneysforfreedom.com and click on the big old red Attorneys on Retainer button at the top. Until next time, my friends, this has been attorney Andy Marcantel and attorney Marc J. Victor with our guest, Dan from HDC. Peace.
Peace.